begin with our harbor seals. These are Milo and Monty, and they are the pinniped with the widest geographical distribution. These guys are very special for a couple of reasons. Of course, they are your guys' first look at pinnipeds today, which is a really big word. So let's break it down for you guys because it's actually got some really cool meaning behind it. In Latin, pinne means wing and ped means foot. And if you look at their feet, do you think that makes a lot of sense? Oh yeah, they've got special flippers on them that help them swim through the water. And if you look close at the seals, you might notice that they've got some very cool nails on those. And that's because they are indeed their feet, even though they're flippers. With our seals and sea lions, you'll notice a variety of traits that they have in common and different. So let's go over some of the things that make the seals pretty unique. These guys are some incredible divers which can dive at depths of up to 1,500 feet. Yeah, they also can do it for 30 minutes holding their breath, and sometimes that's long enough that you might see them napping underwater. We've got plenty of seats if people want to come and make their way over to the middle or this side over here. Let's just make certain that we're keeping that handicap parking area free. Another cool feature that you'll notice about our sea lions and seals is their whiskers. They've got about 70 whiskers, the most of any animal, and those are very sensitive, and just like a cat's whiskers, they can use those to find their way and to sense for prey, especially in murky waters. The harbor seals can reach lengths of about 6.5 feet, and they will weigh all the way up to about 370 pounds. Milo and Monty are a couple of very special boys for us, and they do a great job of getting along. And let's see, we can have a little bit of a doubling up here, but we don't want to sit on the stairs, so if you guys can just kneel behind each other. Also, we've got some cool facts to tell you about the way that we train. So you'll notice a bit of a pattern, and that is a few steps that we repeat. So the first step of every training is going to be what we call a cue. Since our pinnipeds don't speak English and we don't speak pinniped, we have to find a common language. So you'll notice that we use a variety of methods. And if you have a pet dog at home that you train, you might use some of these methods too. Sometimes you will hear us give a verbal cue. We'll say something like, maybe if you have a dog, you tell him to sit. Sometimes we pair that with a hand motion to show them what we want. Other times we'll use different devices such as our training sticks, which are a very easy way for the animals to learn new behaviors. And those cues just tell the animal what we want and help us to communicate with them. The second part of any training is what we call a bridge. So over here you might hear a sharp whistling sound. Other places you might hear a clicking sound. A bridge is akin to when you tell your dog, good job. Basically what it does is tell the animal, you did what I want, you'll get your reward soon. Speaking of reward, that is the third and final part of the training that we do. So that can be anything that the animal really wants. And listen up if you're a parent, because these are the ways to train your kids too. Now, you might notice that our pinnipeds enjoy a lot of fish for their reward. They are very highly food motivated, and food is an excellent reward. However, other animals might have different preferences depending on their species and individuals. So, for example, the northern white rhinos really enjoy a good scratch behind the ear. So, do any of you guys who have kids have any ideas what rewards you might use for them? Anything other than food? What do we think? Maybe video game time or device time? Is that a good reward? How about coming to visit the zoo or the park? Maybe getting a brand new toy? So the sky's the limit when it comes to stuff, or rather, whoever you're trying to please is the limit, because they're the ones who kind of decide what is worth it to them. So at this point, do we have any questions so far? No, not yet? All right. Then I have a joke for you. What is the sea lion's favorite subject in school?
There you go.
Well, there we go. Nova answered it for us. It's obviously art, 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 art. And with that, I'd like to introduce our good friends Nova and Elvira, our female sea lions. And while they are showing us their awesome learning capabilities, we're going to go over some of their behaviors and why we train for them. So with the seals, we already learned how we do our training, but another good question that you might have is why we train. So when we are training, we've got a few specific goals in mind. We want to enrich their lives and improve them, as well as give them something to do. Just like when you're a kid, you have to go to school so you can learn. Our sea lions have a lot of learning that they can do too. In fact, we've got 3 main reasons why we train. The first one is life enrichment, and with that we have another way to do that, which is just giving them different pieces of enrichment, which are basically puzzle things which let them use their brain and their body in different ways so that they can experience life and practice their learning. Another thing that we do, other than practicing our amazing throwing arm, is when we train, we choose natural behaviors. This is anything that a sea lion would normally do in their natural environment that we want to simulate and have them practice here. If you have kids, you might relate that every now and then you have to say, all right, lazy bums, time's to get off the couch and go outside and get your exercise or play. Well, just like you would rather have a free donut that you don't have to work for than one that you have to run a marathon for, you're obviously going to choose the free donut. Our sea lions also sometimes prefer to get a free lunch. And while they get all of their food regardless, we like to give them a challenge because, of course, everything is more satisfying when you earn it. So by having them perform these behaviors for us, we are enriching their lives and helping them to practice their natural behaviors and giving them a bit of inspiration and stuff. And the very last reason that we train is my personal favorite, and that is training for medical behaviors. And this is honestly what I think is the most important. So every single behavior that we choose does have a purpose, and medical behaviors is perhaps the easiest one to spot on your own. In fact, it's the most common, and we can see Elvira showing us some natural behaviors with her amazing pin-up head motions there. And that is something that we like to call porpoising. But a medical behavior is just any behavior that helps with their medical care. Now, have you guys been to the doctor before? Yeah? What about your first time to the doctor? Was it something that you were really happy for, or was it a little bit scary? I'm hearing a lot of scaries. I agree. I don't even like to go to the doctor today. Well, we don't want our animals to have a difficult life full of fear. We want to make everything as easy for them as possible. And even animals don't like going to the vet, right? So what we do is have them participate in their medical care. So you'll notice a few different ways that we do that here. Some of the more common ways that we do that are by giving them mobility tests. Having them move in different ways, showing us their strength and their mobility is a great way to make certain that they are all in tip-top shape. That helps us to check for joint pain and all of that without having to get too up close and personal and stick them in a bunch of buzzing machines and all of that stuff. Another thing that you'll see them do is different positioning behaviors to show off different parts of their body. Just like when the doctor might say, all right, I need to see your shoulder. Can you show me your shoulder? Or, hey, let me see that knee if it's got an injury. We want to be able to look over our animals without getting too close to make certain that they are perfectly healthy and haven't gotten any scratches, bumps, or bruises throughout the day. So we might ask them to show us different body parts that we don't normally see, such as rolling over to see their tummy, opening their mouth to show us their teeth so we can check on their dental hygiene, and other such behaviors. And so that's another important part of their training. And this is Chino, my friends. We can all wave hi to Chino. Another one of the reasons why we train is perhaps one of my favorite, and that is different, more complicated medical behaviors, such as receiving a shot. See, you guys have to go to the doctor to get shots, and our animals are no exception. To keep them in the best of shape, we like to be able to give them all sorts of medical care, and so they are trained to do all of those complicated behaviors. Now, as we have the pleasure of Chino's company, I'd like to tell you a bit about his amazing story. And as we watch him do his training behaviors, maybe you can see some of those things that we talked about, why we train and what the behaviors are. But we're going to go over his story while you guys watch for that. So Chino is around 20 years old now. He was born in the Pacific Ocean, and he lived there for a full 2 years. However, those years were not the very best of his life, and there is a simple reason for that. When he was about 1 year old, he got caught in a net. And as you can imagine, when he grew bigger, the net did not. And so that put a lot of struggle and strain on him. And in fact, if you look under his chin, you can see a really big wrinkle. That's actually a scar from that time of his life. Well, when he was 2 years old, he was found by some very wonderful humans who were able to get him some help. They took him into their care. They were able to remove the net and treat his injuries. However, after they completely treated his injuries and he had made a full recovery, when they did his assessment to see if he would be good to be released, they had determined that Chino would have a difficult time living in the ocean with the rest of the sea lions. And so a decision was made that he would have a happier and healthier life in human care. And that is how he eventually came here. Now, since Chino is here with us today, he not only gets to regale us with his amazing might, but he also has some amazing opportunities, like having 4 beautiful children. And you can see his children are all the other sea lions that are in the exhibit today. So he is the dad to all the other sea lions that we've seen. Another opportunity that he has is endless fish, and Chino really likes that opportunity. So at this point, after we've heard Chino's amazing and awe-inspiring tale, do we have any questions so far? Yes, we have one in the black shirt. Go ahead. Ooh, why is he dancing? So you remember when I was talking about medical behaviors and I was talking about motion and strength-based ones? So when Chino does that hopping from flipper to flipper, from front flipper to front flipper, that's an easy way to show us that he is strong and healthy, right? Do you ever need to get tested when you're at school to make sure that you're strong? Maybe you run super fast laps to do a test so that they know that you're healthy and strong. That's basically what Chino is doing. He's showing us that he is a nice, healthy boy. Yes, question in the yellow shirt. Yes, we did have Fluke at one point. I think he had a little bit of a trip elsewhere, and we will see how he is doing. I think we might get an update on him soon. However, this is his brother, Raiden. So Raiden is going to show us some really cool behaviors that you guys can watch out for. And while we're enjoying Raiden's company, there he is showing us how strong and healthy he is again. We're going to go over a few different things that we can do to help the sea lions, because we've all enjoyed the benefit of their company today, and we all want to be able to enjoy them even more. So, I've got a few things that you guys can do to help them. Obviously, we heard Chino's story, and though we try to avoid taking animals from their natural habitat, every now and then we have an animal that needs our help that we will be able to take and bring them to our zoo to improve their lives. But we don't want to do that. We want our animal friends to be, as the Wildcats say, free and living in the wild, right? So we've got some things that you guys can do to help them. The first one is pretty cool. Do you guys like to eat food? Yeah, maybe you have picnics at the zoo? Yeah? Well, when you do that, I bet you get a lot of trash. What do you think you can do with that trash to help the animals? Pick it up! When we litter, even in Nebraska, any of the trash that stays outside gets washed into the rivers and down into the ocean. And while they may not be nets like Chino was stuck in, there are many ocean animals that trash can hurt and does hurt every single day. So an easy thing that you guys can all do to help the animals that we love so much is pick up your trash, or even other people's trash if you see it on the ground. After all, we all sometimes forget, so it's no big deal to help out and pick up a little bit of trash, right? Especially when it benefits our friends. Yeah. Let's just make sure that we're all staying in our seats and not against the glass. Perfect. All right. Another thing that you guys can do is something especially easy for the seafood lovers like here. Those of you whose diets might resemble our pinniped friends a little bit more than mine does. You see, you guys can enjoy seafood very much. Sometimes sushi, sometimes fried fish. And your fish is actually the same quality as these guys because they only get the best. However, you guys get to choose what you eat, right? And sometimes we can go for a salad or a steak instead of a nice fish fry. Well, our sea lion friends and other aquatic friends do not get the same privilege. They rely solely on their meals coming from the ocean. So when humans take too much, that means there's not enough food left for them. And we want our friends to have lots to eat, right? But that doesn't mean we have to give up fish. That would be a silly thing to do. Instead, there's an easy resource you guys can use to make good decisions about what you eat. And that is a website we called seafoodwatch.org. This is what we use to determine what food and fish we will get for our animals. And it doesn't just tell you which are the healthiest and most delicious for the season, but also which ones are sustainably caught and will not negatively impact our friends. And the last thing that you guys can do is something even easier than all of that. You can come to the zoo, learn more about our animal friends, and support us. Because, of course, anything that you spend at the zoo, whether it's entry, whether it's your membership, any rides, concessions, or gifts that you get, all of that goes straight to supporting our animals, and beyond that to our conservation efforts throughout the world. So I'd like to thank you for joining us today and for helping our sea lion friends and other zoo animal friends. I've just got one last question before we end, and I'll ask you guys, and I'll answer your questions. Can you guys raise a flipper if you're going to help the sea lions and do one of those things that I talked about today to help them? Yeah, I want to see a lot of flippers waving because we love our sea lion friends. Hooray! Well, with all of this support, I'm sure that we will make a grand difference. All right, at this point, our official talk is over, and I'm just going to go around answering questions. So if you do have those, just keep your flippers up, and I will get to you. All right, go ahead. How do we train them? So when we train, we use for all of our animals at the zoo exclusively positive reinforcement, and we do operant conditioning. So basically, it's the same as how you train a dog. You ask them to do something. When they do it, you give them a reward. And then since they want the reward, they're more likely to do the same behavior again. Does that help? What is the whistle for? So the whistle is something we like to call a bridge. It's basically like telling your pet dog, good job. And it just helps with the training because sometimes you can't get them their reward right away. All right, what other questions do we have? Yes. Why do they need to eat fish? Well, it all comes down to adaptation. Do you know what kind of eater you are? You're in a special group of eaters called omnivores. That means you can eat plants and meat. What about cows? What do cows eat? Grass and plants. They can only eat plants. What about cats? What do they eat?
Mice.
Mice and meat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, some animals, just like meat eaters, like to eat meat and mostly only eat meat, and plant eaters only eat plants, and omnivores can eat both, while some animals can only eat fish. That's a special type that we call piscivores. So that is what a lot of the animals in the ocean are. Because is there a bunch of grass in the ocean? Not very much. There's maybe a little bit of seaweed, but not all animals can eat that. How about a bunch of cows? Are there lots of delicious cows or deer in the ocean? No. But what is there a lot of in the ocean? Fish. So most of the animals that live in the ocean have to eat fish. Go ahead.
What's it called where it's good for species to eat mostly plants and some meat?
Yeah, so if they like to eat both plants and meat, that's called omnivores.
Mostly meat, mostly plants.
Mostly plants. Yeah. So
safe to feed them broccoli. Alright. And carrots and like stuff you feed a blind rabbit too.
yeah, so a few animals will. So most animals that are, even if they just eat plants, they can eat a tiny bit of meat. So that's a bit of a misconception that they only eat plants, because sometimes if you eat plants, you aren't going to care if there's a little tiny bit of meat in there too. So it just depends on how much of the diet is made up of what. So it kind of depends on the exact animal and what the research on them says. But that's a really good question. Yeah.
Ready?
Yes, over here.
So, how many pounds of fish do they eat each day?
That's a good question. I would have to double check with the keepers.
It varies. Right now, we do it in kilograms or calories actually. So for me, it's easier to tell you how many calories everybody's eating. Chino's at about 7,000 calories a day, but in the wintertime, we eat 17,000 calories. Oh my God! Yeah.
Wow!
So, our girls are at about 4,000. I would say it's about, and we also maybe 18 pounds for like the girls in the seals. Chino's probably at about 15 pounds-ish. Don't quote me on that though. It changes. We change their diet quite often.
Yep.
So 14,000 calories, that's a lot of calories.
That is, yeah. And part of the reason for that is because sea lions live in very cold waters, so they need thick blubber. And those males can weigh all the way up to 800 pounds, sometimes even more. They're about 8 feet, or about, 8 feet long too. So you saw just how big Chino is. They get that big and even a little bit bigger.
I need less than 1,800.
Oh, good, good. We definitely need to eat what's right for us, that's for sure.
Did you guys forget a backpack?
Nope, that's fine. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Do they eat fat?
Do they eat fat? They eat a lot of fat. Mostly what's on their fish food.